trying to say, let scriptures, what we're reading, know about who Jesus was, you know. And so our Bible study is going to be like a conversation that Sarah and I are going to talk just as if we were sitting here in my study and discussing the scripture.
Yeah. So just for housekeeping, I will just generally mute everybody just so we don't avoid some of the background noise. But we do want people to interact. So if you have questions or if you have a comment, please feel free to like raise your hand or unmute yourself and jump in there. And Jose's there now. Hi, Jose.
Hey, Jose.
Yes, I just want to say hi. Hello, everyone.
Good to
Hello,
see you.
can anybody hear me?
Yes.
We're good.
Yes, we can hear you. We can see you.
Oh, great, perfect.
We're
Sorry, excuse me. I'm gonna be eating some snacks. I just came back and
Okay.
I haven't had any dinner, so I have to go to the doctor. So excuse me if I'm just eating nuts.
Okay. And then our Bible study, basically, instead of just like me staring into a Zoom screen and watching myself, I'm gonna have a conversation with my lovely wife, and we're gonna talk the way we would kind of if we were having some sort of discussion or Bible study. And so you're gonna kind of listen into interject, to do things like that. But we didn't stage this. Like, I haven't given her questions. I haven't told her what to say. She hasn't told me what to say. We haven't done anything ahead of time. You know,
practice.
So no practice, nothing scripted, nothing staged. This is like how we would sort of talk if we were discussing scripture. So, and the great thing is my wife gets to tell me, like, you know, if I'm talking too much or, you know, something like that. She can give me cues and all this thing, and she has full permission to do that. So, and at the end, we'll leave the lobby open kind of when the class is over in case you have any questions or you want to talk or you want to connect. And then for those of us that are in the LA area, on Sunday mornings, we have an outside coffee and donuts, social distancing Bible study time where we get together with masks. We follow all the COVID protocols, and we just talk about some scripture, sometimes discuss things that we've talked about on Thursday night. So if you're in the area and like to join us, that would be awesome. We're very safe. We follow everything we should do, but it is a good opportunity to do a little socializing and fellowshipping, because that's such, we can't do it on a night like this, unfortunately, but we have a small group on Sunday that gets together. So if you want to know about that, let us know.
And just so everyone knows, I know that there have been new regulations that have come out yesterday and today. So that is something that we will be reviewing to make sure that we are still complying and being safe.
And we're following all the legal orders too, in terms of right now, outdoor gather worships or, you know, religious gatherings are permitted without a number limit on them outside. So we're following all that as well. Okay, so anyway, without further ado, we'll rock and roll. We have a dog that's sitting here between us, so if you suddenly see a creature stand up or shake or bark, it's not us, okay? So he really is right there. And then, like I said, if you have a Bible, use whatever you have. We're going to use the Revised Standard Version of the scripture, like that's what we'll read from, but use whatever you like. Use a Bible app, use the internet or the Bible that you have, whatever's comfortable. But it's an RSV if you like want to follow along literally, or so you can kind of read it word for word. And we're gonna read Matthew chapter 8. So we're in the New Testament. Matthew is the first gospel. And we're going to read out of chapter 8 and be discussing that tonight. And we'll see how we get to. We have about 3 more Bible studies tonight and a couple more before sort of the end of the year and Christmas. And let me see. Does anybody want to read? Who's not me? You're going to hear me talk enough tonight. If not, Sarah will. But does anybody want to read Matthew chapter 8 for us so we can sort of get a little context?
I can.
All right, Steve. Go ahead. Taryn's going to read, so just listen along. You can just listen or you can just follow, whatever is best to do.
All right, give me a second. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Bible. No. Let's see. I swear my zoom gets higher and higher on all my browsers. Okay. When he came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. And behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And he stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will be clean. I will be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, see that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded, for proof of the people. As he entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, in terrible distress. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion answered, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes. And to another, come, and he comes. And to my slave, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard him, he marveled and said to those following him, truly I say to you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and sit at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of kingdom will be thrown into outer darkness. There men will weep and gnash their teeth. And to the centurion Jesus said, go, be it done for you as you have believed. And the servant was healed that very moment. And when Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying sick with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she rose and served him. That evening they brought to him many who were possessed with demons, and he cast out the spirits with a word, and healed all who were sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah. He took our infirmities and bore our diseases. Now when Jesus saw great crowds around him, he gave orders to go over to the other side. And the scribe came up and said to him, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Another of his disciples said to him, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. But Jesus said to him, follow me, and leave the dead to bury the dead. And when he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waters, but he was asleep. And they went and woke him, saying, Save, Lord, we are perishing. And he said to them, Why are you afraid, O men of little faith? Then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. And the men marveled, saying, What sort of man is this, that even the winds and sea obey him? And when he came to the other side, to the country of the Gadarenes, two demoniacs met him coming out of the tombs, so fierce that no one could pass that way. And behold, they cried out, What have you to do with us, O Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? Now a herd of many swine was feeding at some distance from them. And the demons begged him, If you cast us out, send us away into the herd of swine. And he said to them, Go. So they came out and went into the swine, and behold, the whole herd rushed down to the steep bank into the sea, and perished in the waters. The herdsmen fled, and going into the city, they told everything, and what had happened to the demoniacs. And behold, all the city came out to meet Jesus, And when they saw him, they begged him to leave their neighborhood.
All right, thank you for reading, and it's good to get a little, break from me doing it. So thank you for doing that. And so who knows how.
You're welcome.
And for whoever is listening in on our conversation, all of you are eavesdropping, and but we may just get to the leper. I have no idea. We're not really in a hurry, meaning we don't have a schedule. We don't have a have to do this or have to do that. And then just remember, all the previous weeks are on a recording too, in case that you want to watch something or catch up. So just like, feel free to ask questions, to talk, to make comments, anybody, and then that it's okay if we just go where we need to go, and remember, ask questions, use your imagination, and don't think about stereotypes. Think about what this says to us, So first of all, so when he came down from the mountain, he's just gotten through with the Sermon on the Mount, which is the most famous, and it's a collection of Jesus sayings, and so you're looking at that and saying, okay, I don't know if anybody's ever spent any time, or if you've ever spent any time in doing public speaking. It's exhausting. I was over in Myanmar and Thailand this last year, this year in January, and I taught for 50 hours over 3 weeks, and it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
You teach for 6 or 7 hours a day. It's very, very, very draining. And so remember that Jesus was God in human flesh, but he emptied himself of his godness. So he had all the human weaknesses and temptations that a person had. So he was tired, and he often wanted to get away, but it seems like one of the things that he was doing here is saying, you always have access to me. You're not a nuisance. I'm never too tired for you. I'm always going to rise to the occasion to pay attention to people, And so he came down from the mountain, and he can't get away from the crowds. And if you have crowds that you're feeding and that you're healing and that you're teaching, they always need your attention too. It's not as if that you just can take a nap, and if you're the center of attention, then it is a constant 24/7 barrage in terms of that. So the demand for him was just huge, and people have questions, whatever that may be. So behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him. Okay, so a couple things. The leper had to know something about Jesus, and he had to know that he was approachable. Now, I think this is something that Christians miss these days, and that is instructive for us, meaning, like, I've heard of people say, oh, I could never step foot in a church, it would fall down. Or God could never forgive a person like me, or God doesn't want to have to do with any gangsters or any bad people or something like that. That Christians have too often put out an air of maybe self-righteousness or condemning judgment, or I'm better than you, and that they seem unapproachable in terms of, like, for somebody that's really messed up or broken or troubled or bad, that they don't feel that a church or Christians are hospitable to them, not approachable.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times Christians have amnesia. I'm saved, and then as soon as I'm saved, I'm going to forget who I was and what I was saved out of. And so then it's easier for me to judge other people and say, oh, you are a problem.
Well, and so first of all, the leper was taking great risks because, and we're going to go into this, it's, it can seem like, why are we talking so long about a leper? But what's happening here is absolute insanity in the culture. Yeah. So the leper was risking because they couldn't be, it's kind of like today if you had COVID. Mm-hmm. They had very strict laws. They had to cover themselves. They had to have unkept hair. They had to wear ragged clothing. They often had to wear a bell. They had to call themselves unclean. They had to stay 6 feet from anybody. If the wind was blowing, they had to stay 20 feet from somebody. They had to wear a facial covering like it was today. They had to identify themselves. They couldn't be in anybody's home. And lepers were essentially treated like a dead person. Leprosy was a terminal illness. It was a slow and painful death. It was not something that you recovered from, or not something that you
It wasn't something that was treated either.
That you could treat, and you knew that you were dead. In fact, the lepers received from the priests, when they got leprosy, rituals that you would give to a dead person. They were the walking dead, and they were ritualistically unclean. They would never even get that near. To be close enough to a Jewish teacher, a true rabbi or teacher, would be to violate all the laws, and they would be stoned to death because they had violated this. So somehow Jesus' reputation was one in which this leper knew that he could approach him. So there's great hope, and there's a confidence in who Jesus was, that he would accept him, and that the risk was worth it, because you were already dead, but you were violating every commandment there, and a leper was a walking dead person, and it was a horrible, horrible disease. Not only that, but any disease was associated with demonic activity, and that you were maybe possessed by the devil, or you had done something sinful, or your parents had done something sinful, and you were being punished. So not only were you an outcast from society, not only did you had no social contact, not only did they already treat you as a dead person, you were unclean, you were unacceptable to God, you couldn't go into the places of worship, and then people also saw this as your own fault.
Yeah, you kind of deserved it.
Yes, because you've sinned or your parents did. So this is something that it's kind of like, we don't necessarily even have this type of equivalent. We have some idea about, in the COVID world, about what a person has to go through if they have COVID, right? Quarantine and restriction and masks and all that, but we don't understand this, right? And so that right at the very beginning of this, we're going from all that Jesus is teaching, and now we're learning about what he's doing. And what he's doing is he is communicating to people. His reputation is, I'm approachable. Anybody can come see me. I'm not like the other teachers. I'm not like the other rabbis. And so then what happens is, so here we go. A leper came to him and knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you will, make me clean. Was somebody saying something? Or?
Yes. Just really quick. And all the things you've said, of course, they point at that, but also the writer, Matthew, right before he gives us this account of the leper, he uses this really simple, introduction. And behold, it's not just and look, it's so important for Matthew to write this and put it in this preface it by saying, just really pay attention to this, what's going on, because we miss it. We totally miss it. Oh yeah, well, he healed another guy. No, like you said, this is a big deal, and Matthew is letting us know, hey, if you're gonna pay attention to something, pay attention to this. And so it's worth digging into it, because it's important to him. Why is it so important to the writer that we understand this? And you nailed it. This is not a to us, it may be nothing. We are not used to these kind of diseases, but to them it was a matter of life and death. So it's, hey, pay attention to this and see who this guy is. Not the leper, but Jesus. How approachable and how loving. Is just look at this, please.
No, and that's a great.
Well, and not just how approachable and how loving, but also the confidence that he has to have that Jesus can heal him, because he's not going to risk what little standing he has. He's not going to risk abuse for like a chance.
Hey, he has two options. Either he heals me, or the crowd will kill me. That's it. He's risking a lot.
Yeah, and this is probably like, in terms of the slow death of leprosy, it's probably like getting Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, or getting HIV/AIDS or something like that, and the type of stigma that would be associated with that, And so this is something that, and Matthew knew about this, okay, because Matthew was a tax collector before he knew Jesus, and tax collectors were almost like a leper. They were outcasts, they were hated, they were seen as betrayers of their own people, and they were unclean, and so Matthew did know something of what it meant to be an outcast in that society, and then how Jesus accepted him, that anybody could come before him. And so it's not coincidental that Matthew, the tax collector, before he reformed and changed his life, is talking about the story of the leper, you know. And so you also realize here that a Christian or somebody who's following Jesus is breaking cultural norms and taking risks and bucking trends of society in order to associate with people and touch people and love people that normal society would have nothing to do with, you know. And Christians have a great history of taking care of people, even like lepers. Father Damien and Molokai was one who took care of a leper colony, and he ended up contracting leprosy. You know, so this is not unheard of for Christians to take care of people who have the plague or leprosy as well, following the footsteps, even without the magical power of healing. So he says, you know, Lord, if you will, make me clean. So he stretched out his hand and touched it. It's interesting that Jesus heals people, and in fact, we're going to read this later in this chapter. Jesus heals people from afar.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to touch them to heal them,
Mm-hmm.
but he does. And there's a statement in that touch and contact, and another, he heals a slave, which we're going to read about, but in this instance, he heals through touching. Well, he doesn't have to touch him, right? He's God. He has the power to heal. But why does he do that? Well, everybody around him is seeing that as a statement. I'm not like teachers. I'm not like the rabbis. I'm touching to be able to heal, and I'm touching a leper, right? Well, this had to blow people's mind in a way that's almost unimaginable to us, and you have to sort of get in touch with that, because if people are like, wow, that's a great risk to him, you know. And there's actually a great story from, if you know who Tim Tebow is, he's the son of a missionary family. He was born in the Philippines, and he's done mission trips all over the world. And one of the circumstances is that he was doing this big talk at a school in the Philippines, and there was a kid that they brought in briefly, but the administrators wanted to leave, and he was a handicapped kid, and his friends had to carry him in and carry him back out. Well, Tebow noticed that this kid was there, and then he left. And so he decided afterwards to go find out where he was. And the kid was in a hut, and his friends were with him. So they had missed this opportunity to see him, which is, everybody wanted to see him. He's a cool guy. He's an NFL football player. He's a foreigner, you know, and he goes and he sees this kid. And this is in a real remote part of the world, and so there was not a lot of, you know, there's translation, and there's, you know, it's way far away from, you know, Los Angeles here. But Tebow said afterwards he went into the little hut where the kid was, and his friends, great friends first of all, that missed this opportunity to see him, to stay with their friends, and he went in and got this kid who's disabled, and he picked him up and he brought him out. And he was carrying him because he's a big old football player, so he can carry him. Well, it's interesting that he said nobody remembered the talk that he gave at the gymnasium in the school forum. But what really spread the gospel and shared about who Jesus was is everybody thought that kid was possessed by evil spirits or did something wrong, that there was magic power, and that something was wrong with him, and that's why he was, and that people wouldn't touch this kid because they were afraid that they would be taken over by this demonic power or get sick or something like this. And so Tebow says what ended up communicating the gospel about Jesus is that he picked up the kid and he told people through a translator, I know a power more powerful than whatever evil spirit this is, that's stronger than this, and it can't affect me and it can't touch me. It's the power of Jesus Christ, the power of the Holy Spirit. And that was the thing that brought Jesus to this whole group of kids and people and everything, is the touching of the kid is what communicated the gospel to them. It wasn't the preaching that he did. It was that he was not afraid of the evil spirits and he touched the kid. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's the type of story that I imagine here, is like, maybe they didn't remember what happened on the Sermon on the Mount, mm-hmm. but I bet you they remembered that he was touching a leper, you know. And it's kind of like, that is something so true of us, that we can say all the right things, but it's really ultimately about how we treat other people. And that is a part of the life for us as Christians, you know, and right here at the beginning. And like I said before, we may never get past the leper tonight. I don't know. I mean, you know, and that's okay, because there's so much in there. And you want to take your time to get what's there, you know. So I'm just not, that's all right. If we talk about the leper all night, we talk about the leper all night, you know. So he stretched out his hand, he touched him, saying, you know, I will be clean. And cleanliness doesn't necessarily just mean like he took a shower. Cleanliness doesn't mean he's just healed, but there were religious rituals of purity and cleanliness that the Jewish religious system had set up. And there were a lot of people that were unclean. Well, if you weren't a Jew, you were unclean. And even if you were a Jew and you had leprosy, you were unclean. And sometimes women were unclean. And if you had diseases or blood, you were unclean. And there was a very sophisticated ritualistic purity laws that the Jews had sort of concocted and developed that were very sophisticated and very restrictive and very exclusive and judgmental and intolerant.
Well, and it's like the priest had to like certify you.
Correct. Right. And so remember, Jesus is, you know, he's asking, it's interesting. So it says, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. He's not necessarily even asking to be healed, but he's asking to be clean, which means I can approach God. I could go in the temple and I could worship. He couldn't do that, and therefore he was an outcast and not acceptable to God. So cleanliness was a way of being able to worship and participate in religious life. And so Jesus is saying, well, he is healing him, but he's also saying, I'm making you clean, which is basically saying God is no longer rejecting you. You know, God is no longer, well, God is not upset with you. He's not punishing you. You don't have a demon. You're not being punished for sin. You're clean. You're free from this disease and all that means in culture, right? So,
yeah, so that's, I mean, it's kind of like when you're talking about that, you know, like, so cleanliness or being clean in the Jewish culture meant that you were allowed to have access to God. And so this leper, whether he understands the extent of what he's doing or not, this leper is kneeling before God saying, give me access to God. And Jesus is saying, you have it. You already have it.
Right. And so, so the clean or the cleansing has sort of a dual meaning or a depth of meaning that we don't understand. And so then, you know, and immediately his leprosy was cleansed. Okay. So to be clean and to have your leprosy cleansed are very wrapped up in a lot of different cultural pieces. So then, and Jesus said to him, it's kind of strange, but see that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a proof to the people. Okay. Right now in COVID time, if you have a positive COVID test, you go into quarantine and you can't get out of quarantine until you have like a negative test. If you're in a hospital, maybe it's 2 negative tests, but and the CDC is checking you and the state is checking you and the county is checking you and you have to go in and get tests and everything. Well, there's a very similar process for a variety of diseases, including leprosy within that culture, meaning they don't just trust you to say, oh, I'm okay, I don't have a disease anymore. You have to go through a multiple step process and to have multiple tests given and be given a clean bill of health, not just once, not just twice, sometimes 3 times. Okay. So basically, if you think, let's say you've had a disease like leprosy and maybe you got better or you got healed or you were misdiagnosed or maybe somebody was healing you. Well, you had to go in and go through a ritualistic process with the priest where they tested you and they checked you and you provided an offering and they used 2 birds. They sacrificed one of the birds. The other bird was alive. There was water. There was blood. There was a certification. And then you went back again a couple weeks later and did this again in case it was just illusion. So Jesus is saying that right now what this guy has to do is now go through the process of getting certified or a clean bill of health from the religious authorities, because people may not believe him and he has to go through this, that it's a way in one sense that you're bowing to culture and that he's able to get out of this, because it's different for Jesus. Nobody really knows who Jesus is. He's at the beginning of his ministry and Jesus just say, oh, you're clean. Well, that's not good enough. He can't go into the synagogues. He can't go into the temple. He's not clean just because Jesus said so. he still has to pass the tests of culture and society. And so that's what the guy has to go through. And the reason he asks him not to tell anybody, I think, of course, you have to use your imagination, but it's like people might not even believe it. And it may make it difficult for him to go through, and they may want to give him a test, and they may think Jesus is doing magic. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this is something where he's just saying, hey, you know, and Jesus might not want credit for it. You know, it's kind of like he just has pity and compassion for him, and then he just, you know, takes care of that. And so that you can imagine if Jesus is trying to, he doesn't want to be a celebrity.
Well, I think he also might be trying to shake the foundation of the Jewish faith. I mean, because I know that he says, show yourself to the priest. And a lot of times for other kinds of uncleanliness, people were able to get cleansed from the priest. I don't know if anybody had recovered from leprosy before this, you know, and so this may be a new thing. So he may go to the priest, and the priest is like, wait, what? And have to figure out what he's going to do with this guy, because I don't know that they have a situation like it before.
Yeah. Right. And so it's just something that we're using our imagination, and there's some conjecture. I don't think we always have to have, we can't put God and Jesus in a perfect box that we have all the answers. There's some things that we make our best guess, and some things that we use our imagination about, and then some things that we're like, oh, we're really sure this is the case. But needless to say, that was important for Jesus, and there's a lot of reasons why that would be. Now, all the reasons why the cleansing of the leper, we know, you know, like all that is evident and clear. Why he didn't want to say something is something where, you know, we don't have to agree on that or even have that perfect answer, you know. And so, okay, so there's a combination. Jesus teaches, and now he's going to practice what he teaches. Loving your enemies, praying for those who persecute you. All the words of Jesus are now going to put into action. And so that is super, super critical. And what I want to do is just get that into our minds, that Jesus is not merely a person that has great philosophy and great teachings and great moral ideas, but he's a person that goes and lives it out. And that's also what we have to do, is we say, well, we can have all the right answers. We can know the things about Jesus. We can have the education. Yet we have to go and take what we learned and put it into practice in the daily life. And that's the challenge to us, because it's easy to know things. It's not always easy to touch the leper, to visit with people you're not supposed to visit, to break the cultural norms. There can be a lot of pressure to do things the way it's always been done. And Jesus is basically saying, sorry, I'm not bowing to culture and to pressure in society. In fact, I'm breaking those cultural laws and boundaries and barriers in order to do the things I've been talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, it jumping ahead in the story a little bit, Jesus asks us to pray for those that persecute you, and on the cross he prayed for, literally prayed for the people that were like physically persecuting him in that moment. And so I don't think that I have an excuse, or I don't think I have like a hall pass for anything less than being crucified.
Right, and we're going to get to that too, but Jesus is kind of setting an example that you might be mocked, and you might be laughed at, and you might be ridiculed, and you might be questioned, and you're breaking boundaries and cultural laws and cultural norms and risking. And if you want to do what he says, then that's a part of what you're committing to.
Yeah, and
not just a belief system.
He's not asking us to, you know, like in his situation, he was not like doing whatever he could to make the Pharisees happy. He wasn't trying to be their best friends, but like the Pharisees that did really approach him and were really interested, he received, and he was open to, and he wanted to build a relationship where he could. And he did pray for the ones that were just set against him and stuff. And so it's not, I mean, it's not like Jesus, when Jesus asked us, you know, in the Sermon on the Mount, which we've already talked about, he said, you know, pray for those that persecute you and love your enemies. He's not asking us to be nice to everybody all the time. No, he knows that it's going to be difficult, and he's just asking us to be in it, trying to be for somebody. And maybe sometimes that's being for somebody, turning things around and not being who they are anymore.
You can just teach us the Bible
Sorry.
study.
No, I'm
moment.
sorry. Okay, you go.
No, it's great. I love it.
You go.
So we're about halfway through. We just sort of finished with the leper. We're going to take a stand-up break, grab some water, use the restroom, shake it out, whatever you want. We'll take about 2 minutes, and we'll just come back and we'll get to the centurion. So we try to stand up, get the blood flowing, move a little bit, and we'll come right back. So
we're going to try to get started.
All right. So we're going to roll back for the second half. We're going to get into the centurion, and we'll see how that is. So we got.
Yeah, I actually have a commentary about that.
You have something to say about the centurion? Go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So I think it is, for me, it is amazing because I was talking to a friend. Actually, she will join us next week, and she was asking me because my friend, I will say, she's amazed because her mom asked about, because I was talking to her about me and Christianity and all that kind of stuff, and she asked me what I think because with all COVID situation, also they have like these small groups to pray, and the priest in charge to do the these pray meetings. He get COVID, so her mom was amazed and mad with God because they were saying like, if we join to pray and all that kind of stuff, why the priest get COVID? And these things really help me a lot, because for me it's really amazing how people like right now they're still thinking if you get some kind of sickness or something, it is because God is not with you, or God is been abandoning you. Because she was amazed because she said, oh, he's a priest, why he get COVID? And I was like, because by then he's a person, so he can get the sick. So yeah, for me it is amazing, like all the situation and what you've been talking.
Well, good. And I think that one of the things my dad always said is that Christians are a special people, but not a protected species. And I think so often that ends up being the stereotype that we get. Is like, it's almost like people are being lied to without even knowing it. Like, if you become a Christian, a follower of Jesus, life's going to be great. Your business will be successful. You'll have a great marriage. You'll have wonderful kids. You won't have any problems. You'll get a promotion. You'll be disease-free and live a happy, healthy life. Well, there's nothing like those promises in Scripture. There's nothing like that type of prosperity. There's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of amazing things that happen as a result of that, fulfillment and purpose and love and finding other people that are in it with you, and the amazing things that happen when you love other people and take care of them. But life's really difficult.
Yeah.
And you might be Jesus promises persecution and difficulty and strife and frustration, and that it's not all going to be great in this life, that there's a cost to following Jesus and to doing things his way and to being a peacemaker in that way. And so I think so often, like, we're trying to lure people to Christianity or make it look better than it really is, as opposed to saying, well, there are some things that are going to be difficult about this. It's completely worth it to know who God is, what your relationship is, what's your purpose in this life, the morality, the meaning in life, your destiny at the end, and to know right from wrong, and to realize that you've been forgiven for the things you need to be forgiven for. But other than that, there's not a lot of guarantees. There's a lot of future promises, but most of the things that Jesus is talking about is there's a cost in this life. And so sometimes that doesn't sell very well. Like, we don't want to be upfront about that. Like, we kind of want to hide those things, but Jesus never hides them. He always lets people know what's up. He always confronts them with the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And he even does so later in this chapter, But that's a good point of beef, in the fact that we just have that idea, maybe because we're informed by culture, we've heard it on TV or something, but it doesn't really reflect what Jesus has to say, and in fact, like, all of Jesus' disciples, his closest, the people that were following him, all of them ended up suffering violent ends for being a follower of Jesus. Only one of them lived out natural long life, but he was on a prison island. But everybody else was martyred and killed and persecuted and tortured because they were following Jesus. Well, wait a second. Isn't there some promise that Jesus doesn't promise to protect people in this life?
And there are still, like today, still parts of the world where
Yeah.
that is happening.
Yeah. So Christians are the most persecuted people in the whole world.
Yeah, like I get that question a lot. I used to get that question even more when I was teaching a youth group in South Central. It's like, they see old people, they see kids randomly shot, just two idiots shooting at each other. The only people that get hit is the 3-year-old girl across the street, the grandmother through her window while she was sitting reading her Bible, and then it's hard for them to get that. Why stuff like that would happen. He would always ask me, it's like, why would God make something like that happen or let something like that happen? And I've often explained it to them, like if death were the other room, right? You walk out that door, like you're in this room and you're alive. You walk out that door, you're dead, and you can come back and forth whenever you want. You can go grab a drink, come back. Like, to God, death is nothing. He knows who you are. He knows where you are, right? And he's not going to. He transcends death. Like, it's hard. You'd be hard to find that. Well, Jesus didn't heal people simply out of compassion. It was the centurion's faith that he marveled at. It was to get people's attention, to heal. He healed people in order to get people's attention. If God didn't want blind people or lepers, or if God, I don't want to say want, but if God needed to have no sickness, there would simply be no sickness. There wouldn't be a single leper. We wouldn't even know what they were talking about. It's just another example that, like, right now we have to realize and help people realize that, we're on a team that transcends the score and all of the hurt and all of the pain. Like, we can't bend to the bad things that happen, because we serve a God that transcends all of that.
Well, I think that one of the things that
Amigo, you need to wait. Sarah maybe walked away with the device that was transmitting your audio.
We can't hear
no?
very well anymore.
Okay.
Mike, computer toward you a little bit?
Yeah.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that is better.
No. So I'm not sure. So there was barking dog and crying babies and was here in the house. And so I think sometimes it's just something that's transitioned to, what's going on with the centurion here, and realize that we have to break out of some of the stereotypes and realize that it's not all perfect. It's all everything doesn't work out. Just growth.
Yeah.
Hey, amigo, I think you need to move a little bit closer to the computer.
Okay.
When you're sitting back like that, we can hardly hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Why? Okay, but before the computer was further away, but nonetheless. So all I was going to say is that we have to get away from some of the stereotypes and the things that just want to make us feel good, and this is the reality that Jesus makes some promises to take care of us ultimately, but sometimes there's going to be an often rough going, in this life, and that's important, because you don't want to feel like anger at God or that you've been deceived, and that we just want a reality of the situation. And Jesus seems to do that with people. He's always letting them know the cost up front and letting them know that it's all worth it. Like I said, knowing your purpose in life, knowing what your relationship with God is, who God is, and what your relationship is, knowing your destiny, and not fearing death. Those things are all worth some of the difficulties and the persecutions that are in us. And so I want to get into the centurion here a little bit and realize and say that this is kind of strange, but now I'm having a conversation with them. Are we all good? My wonderful, beautiful assistant, wife.
Savannah.
Okay. So, can you hear me okay now?
Not really.
No, don't know what happened, but
Okay, something
Okay.
changed when you got up.
oh,
Is that better?
Is that better?
yeah, that's clearer. I don't know what you did.
Yeah.
but-
Better.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Something changed when we picked up the laptop. So
Sarah had
give me a thumbs up
Oh.
if you can hear me okay. Okay, sweet. Look at that. Man, that was fast. Okay. So I'm not like leaning over talking to an empty chair now. So because they couldn't hear me when I was far away. Okay. So centurion. So if you think about this, there's a lot of things happening in this story. We'll try to get through at least this part of it. We're not going to get through the whole chapter today, which is fine. Haha, I said that. We did get through the leper, so we have 2 episodes. So the centurion, I think you can probably think that the centurion, maybe you can think about him like a prison guard or the head of the prison guards. And that one of the amazing things is that at the beginning here, as Jesus entered in Capernaum, this is verse 5. Wow, we've gone through 4 verses. Okay, so this is verse 5. A centurion who is like, he is the head soldier of 100 soldiers. He is a person that has command authority over 100 soldiers. He's the person that has to keep them in line, that has to basically be like the supervisor and the boss of these guys. So he's, a very well-respected soldier. And the Romans were professional soldiers. They ruled the entire known world at that time. They were very good at what they did. You did not become a centurion by being cowardly or lazy or a slackard or showing mercy, or you were whew, okay, it took something to be a centurion. And so this guy comes forward to Jesus, beseeching him, pleading him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home in terrible distress. Okay, this is like the prison guard, the head prison guard, or the warden of a prison begging a prisoner to help his servant in front of everybody. And he on it, beseeching is like begging, right? Almost like hands and knees. The leper knelt down before him, but you get the idea that the centurion has a very similar posture to Jesus that the leper did. Well, that is a spirit of humility and an understanding of who you are before somebody like Jesus. That's amazing. That probably is why he gets mentioned, because this is a phenomenal thing. And so that at the very beginning is amazing, the spirit that the centurion has, because he could order Jesus to do it. He's the boss. He's got 100 soldiers at his disposal. He could say, hey, dude, I've heard, you're healing people. Let's go. My servant needs to be healed. Okay. So the disposition that he has and the humility before, he's the occupying force. He's the boss. He's the guard. And he's not just a soldier. He's the soldier that people would look to him. And this would be seen as being foolish. This would be seen as being weak. This would be seen as being absurd, because he's the occupying ruling force. So he's already doing that. And then he says, Lord, I'm beseeching you, I'm begging you. I mean, oh my gosh, my servant is lying paralyzed at home in terrible distress.
Well, even that this guy cares about his servant. I mean, he's in charge of 100 men, but he's going to care about this one servant.
Yeah, he likely has multiple servants. He's a wealthy guy. He's got a military pension, and servants were, if you read like Polybius and you read Tychicus and you read some of the people that are the historians of the day, they write about the status of property, and slaves were property. And they talked about, it's interesting that there's different kinds of property. Property that was silent and property that was not silent. Property that was silent would be like a cart. Property that was not silent would be like a slave, because they could speak. they were in the same category of being property as you have. They had no
It's
rights.
like an animal.
They were essentially like a tool that spoke. In fact, the legal language was there's tools that speak like a slave and tools that don't speak like a shovel. And, and so that in that culture, for this centurion to care enough to go and humble himself and to swallow his pride and to look foolish in front of all his men and all the people in the occupying force and to look weak to beg for this is amazing that he even cared. Because, like, you know, Rome conquered the whole world. There's plenty of slaves. There were 60 million slaves in the Roman Empire. You could just go get another one, just the way that we could, like, go get another piece of gum. They were not in short supply. There was plenty of them, and if they died, you could just get a new one. You had complete authority over your slave, over life or death, whatever it is. There's nothing. I mean, you know, it's as bad and really worse than we understand, like American chattel slavery. Okay, and so not people or anything like that. So you're kind of going, who is this guy? I mean, like, who is this guy? Who is this prison guard who cares for prisoners so much and is willing to do this? Well, so, you know, he's lying paralyzed and home. He's in terrible distress. So this guy is exhibiting some of the characteristics that Jesus is talking about previously in the Sermon on the Mount. That, you know, loving your enemy, praying for those who persecute you, caring, compassion, peacemakers. Blessed are the humble in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. I mean, this guy is mourning. This is now the leper and now the centurion are embodying, and Jesus is the type of people that he's talking about, the characteristics in the Sermon on the Mount that he's just previously talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, you just got to step back and say, whoa. You know, I mean, we can't really imagine it. It's so drastic as to just be like, okay, what's going on? And then Jesus says to him, I will come and heal him. Well, so now Jesus is offering to go to his house.
Yeah.
So now we're reversing the breaking cultural stereotypes and norms, okay?
Yeah.
Because now it's like Jesus is going to piss everybody off because he is going to go and visit the house of the oppressor.
Yeah.
He's going to go visit the house of the prison guard.
Well, and it's almost like he is challenging the Pharisees to call him unclean, because first he touches a leper, and now he's going to the home of a Gentile, both of which would make you unclean.
Right. Well, and not just any Gentile, but the occupying force. Now, so what Jesus is saying is this is how crazy Jesus was. The Jews wanted this Roman soldier to be assassinated. In fact, they had zealots, from which we get the word zealous, that would attack a Roman soldier and just kill him. So who the Jews see as a candidate for assassination, Jesus sees as a candidate for assistance. You want to assassinate this guy as the enemy, I'm going to go and help him and go into his house. So now the centurion is really betraying the Romans and his culture and his status and his prestige. And now Jesus is, because now Jesus is saying, no, guys, this is the slave owner. I'm going into the slave owner's house to go and help him. And I'm going to betray all the people and piss them off, because how dare you go help them? They deserve whatever they're going to get, you know? And so that's the transition that Jesus is making. And remember, he's been talking about love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Well, now he's getting to do it. There is no more enemy to the Jews than the Romans, and the Roman soldier to boot. And so they have enslaved and tortured and murdered and raped and done everything to the Jewish people. So Jesus has been respected as a teacher, as a Jew, as and maybe they're thinking, oh, he's going to overthrow the government. This guy might have power. This guy might change things. Well, right away, he's going to lose his audience as being any type of hero, he's going to go to a villain, because you can't go and take care of that guy. You can't go with him. You can't talk to him, can't touch him, can't go to his house, and you certainly can't help him.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, because we want to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jesus is living out the Sermon on the Mount. He's living out that reality. And you go from popular healing everybody to now, you're a dark figure in people's minds, you know. And so then, but the centurion knows, no doubt. I mean, he's been spat on, he's been attacked. He knows who he is to the Jews. So he says, Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof. I mean, ironically, he's the most worthy person that Jesus has come across, and Jesus talks about that. But only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I am a man under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say, go. And he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and he does it. And to my slave, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard it, he marveled. Because Jesus is experiencing a lot of people that have hard heads,
Mm-hmm.
and that have got a bunch of religion and ritual and bizarre ideas, and they don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't get through to them, you know, and it just frustrated, because of all the people, the Jewish people should understand who God is, but they don't. And so this guy gets it. And when Jesus heard him, he marveled. And he said to those who followed him, truly I say to you, not even in Israel, so that means all the Jewish people, have I found such faith. The Jews had an idea that they were loved by God and acceptable to God just by virtue of being a Jew. And that the people that were going to be in heaven and the people of faith and that God loved and respected and cared about and approved of and validated were only Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else was there. And it wasn't even all the Jews. I mean, it wasn't the tax collectors and it wasn't the lepers, but it was the good, righteous, religious people that followed all the laws and didn't do this and didn't do that and did this, and you know, were kind of the goody two shoes. Well, faith. You got Abraham as faithful. You got Moses as faithful. You have David. You have the heroes of the faith. But Jesus is saying, "Hey, I've been around a lot. I preached to thousands of people. This guy is better than all of you," because God recognized faith, and they knew faith was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is a raging insult.
Yeah.
That is a raging insult. That's like saying, you know, to a bunch of white Southern plantation owners in the United States in the 1840s, you know, that the really virtuous Christian is, you know, a black slave. That is not going to fly. That's going to piss people off, because it goes against everything, right? And so just no way, you know.
Well, and he's already called, at this point, he's already called his disciples. So it's not just an insult to all the crowds that have come to listen to him, but he's saying even to his disciples, like, you pay attention to this guy. You try to be like this guy.
Right.
You're not there yet, but get in line with him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we often turn faith into like a religious test of doctrine and theology. That it's kind of like, you have to believe these things about Jesus and about God and about baptism and about the Lord's Supper and about the cup and the loaf, and you have to understand the Trinity, and that faith is a set of intellectual beliefs. There's not really much of that here. It's a humble disposition for Jesus. It's caring and compassion for other people. It's loving people that you shouldn't really love,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's being humbled before God, and it's an understanding of who Jesus is and how it works.
And understanding that leads to action.
Yeah, and it's a disposition of spirit and activeness, right?
Yeah.
He goes to Jesus. He humbles himself. He's not afraid to look bad. He's not afraid of the ridicule, because his buddies are making fun of him. Hey, dude, you're a centurion, and you're going to go beg some backwoods Jewish teacher to help your slave. And first of all, why do you care about a stupid slave anyway? We got hundreds of them. I'll give you another one. Just throw them in the ditch and get a new one.
Yeah.
So it's that type of character of person that Jesus has been talking about, that now is like, that's the faith we're looking for. It's not some religious test. It's not orthodoxy. It's not doctrine. It's not following rules or anything.
It's lived out.
Yeah, of course. And so And then now Jesus is laying it on thick. I mean, if you didn't get it before, just in case, hey, in all of Israel, all of you righteous people who God loves, nobody's as faithful as this guy, but let me lay it on thick. Okay. I tell you, many will come from east and west, to sit at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Jesus is describing heaven. He's describing the feast at the end. He's describing this wonderful time where you finally get to meet God and you're with the heroes of the faith, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God is known as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. The centurion's going to be there while the sons of the kingdom, you Jews, you Israelites, will be thrown into outer darkness. There men will weep and gnash their teeth. Jesus is he's not trying to piss them off and to be inflammatory, but he ends up being that way.
Yeah.
Because he's saying, you think you're going to be there just because you're Jewish. Nope. And in fact, many people that you hate and you look down upon and you ridicule and you think that God doesn't love, they're going to be there. And many of you aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
Well, it's no wonder they killed him. I mean, we don't stand for that. That's a great big insult, you know?
Yeah.
And so, first you can say, oh, I haven't seen such faith. Okay. But then he goes from this life to the next, and he goes from heaven, and he gives a picture of heaven. And he's going to say, there's going to be a lot more centurions there than you religious people, because you don't care about people. You don't have compassion. You don't have mercy. You don't care about a slave. You are bowing to cultural pressure. You don't care about the lepers. You don't care about the downcast and the downtrodden. You don't understand who I am. You're not humble before me. You think you've earned credit with God. You think God loves you because somehow you were born that way, or that your stuff doesn't stink, as they say. And so he's using an example that just gotta rankle some people. But it also has to give some other people hope. There's hope for lepers. There's hope for Roman centurions. There's hope for tax collectors, the people that normally the religious people don't want anything to do with. God is trying to get through in love too, And so there's this big opening up. The kingdom of God, God's heart, his love, his favor, his grace, is extended to a lot more people than what we think. And we have to take that lesson today too, that we discount, or we don't want to include, or we think God doesn't love, or he doesn't care for, or can't forgive, is much bigger than our particular box or vision, And so, that once again, I don't think Jesus is trying to piss people off or be offensive or be inflammatory for the sake of doing it, but he does want to get through to people about the type of character, the type of faith, the type of disposition, that God is looking for, what's pleasing to God, because it's not religion, it's not ritual, it's not following rules, it's not a particular set of doctrine or belief or theology, right? But it's loving people and caring about them and trusting in Jesus. And, because the centurion also has, he has obedience, he has understanding, he has trust.
Yeah.
Jesus is going to do it. The leper has trust. The leper will risk. Jesus is describing in the Sermon on the Mount the characteristics of a person that he's going to encounter.
Well, I mean, it's not, the centurion doesn't just have those things.
Yeah.
He also has humility. I mean,
yeah.
How many people, including myself, sometimes go to God or, expecting that it should be, I mean, yeah, obviously you're going to give this to me, because why wouldn't you? And if you don't, I'm going to have some kind of judgment against you. I'm going to, you're going to have wronged me if you don't do this. But the centurion comes in humility and he tells Jesus, I would like you to heal him if you are willing to do that. And Jesus says, okay, I'll come. And he goes, no, man, I'm not even good enough to have you come in my house.
Yeah.
You're too good for me, Lord. All you need to do is just say the word and it's going to happen.
Yeah. And so he finishes. So this is verse 13. And to the centurion, Jesus said, go, be it done for you as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. And so, that people that were candidates for redemption in the Jews, that were candidates for revenge in the Jews' eyes, are redemption candidates in Jesus' eyes. Those that they wanted to assassinate are up for assistance. Those that they wouldn't touch, Jesus touched. You know, and we have a lot of that in our cultures. We're rooting for people to get what they deserve. We're rooting for justice. We want revenge. We want people to get back. And that Jesus is trying to find a new way, and he'll use whoever, like, and we have to get that message. And some of it is offensive, and some of it is we think we're better than we really are. And that he was trying to, well, he was, and he did turn religion upside down and inside out. That it wasn't about, you know, the laws, and it wasn't about the beliefs and doctrines, or saying God's name right, or never cursing, or not having a tattoo, or something like that. But it was about treating other people, trusting God, being obedient to him, being willing to risk, you know, being humble, a disposition, a character, an action, and loving and caring about. And it's accessible to anybody, right? There's no prerequisite. There's no cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you were a Roman soldier who did terrible things to people, you can have redemption. And it doesn't matter if you were a leper. And it doesn't matter if you were a tax collector who screwed your own people. And it doesn't matter later that you were a prostitute. That God and Jesus can overcome all of that. That your standing with God is that you're forgiven.
Yeah.
And that's how he sees you, and he wants you to change your life and do something different with it. So it's a great story of hope for everybody. And that's at least, you know, kind of the first half of chapter 8. So we'll do, who knows?
It's a great story of hope, but it also is a little bit of a judgment, because you're right. I mean, it is something that anybody could do. Anybody could take the time to care about a servant or somebody that should be beneath your notice.
Yeah.
And so it's not like I could have the excuse of, oh, well, that's not my gift, or that's not something that I could do. Or no, it's anybody could do that. Anybody could stop and pay attention to somebody that should be beneath you.
Yeah. So there we go. There's a great challenge there. And I think that, I mean, 2 accounts we spent that whole time, which is just fine. So we'll kind of maybe wrap up chapter 8 next week, or do a couple more sections. So if anybody has comments or questions or something that was good, feel free to share them, and or just want to say hi, goodbye, or whatever that is as well. And then we're gonna kind of get out of here, and we'll come back again next week for the same, just kind of get together and do this again. Thank you.
Same place, same time.
Same place, same time. You know, but if anybody wants to say anything, feel free to say it. We'll leave the lobby open for a little bit if you want to talk or connect. If you want, like, we'll do a Bible study. This is like, what, an hour and a half. Have Bible, we'll travel, or we can do Zoom. I'll come to you if you have questions about science, philosophy, archaeology, history, scripture, Jesus, God, why is evil in the world. We'll talk. Like, I would love to answer those questions together. No questions off limits. No questions sensitive. Like, we want to get to the bottom of it to learn about who Jesus is and what's our relationship. Like, let's do it. You know, like, feel free to contact us or somebody here, and we'll get after it, because sometimes, like, something like this just wets your whistle. You're like, man, I want to do more. Well, we're here. More is available. So,
Z, did you want to say something?
Anybody want to say anything before we go? So, all right. Well,
Sarah, you hit the nail on the head with the centurion. Often, like, I have to think about that, like the confidence he had that Jesus was going to accomplish what he accomplished, and then furthermore, the humility to not say, "Come on, I'm going to make sure you do this," but no, you don't even belong in my home, or I mean, my home isn't fit for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes the church folks aren't the ones that really get it.
Amen.
I was going to say that keep thinking about the lack of faith of the disciples when they're getting swamped in the boat. And it's, it's only a few verses later, but these are the ones who are following Jesus, and they're not believing that they're going to be okay. And yet their centurion had great faith.
Yeah. And so if you want to ahead of next week, read Matthew chapter 8, or you can read this whole section, like read 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, always good. This is a story. We have to piece by piece for this story, you know. So anyway, Miriam, was great to have you join us, and Sandra, it was great to have you join us. We hope that you come back again. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. And it's awesome to see faces from all over the place, and all over other
The last part you hear very, very like weird.
Yeah.
Hear your audio, Jack.
A beef. Who said you could bring a pet to Bible study?
Well, you know everybody's having babies, so why can't I have mine? Oh,
Super villain, like petting a cat. It's a chair.
It's a little bit distracting. Okay.
sorry, I promise it won't be like here next time. I guess.
It's okay. That's all right. It's nice to meet you, Z.
Can you hear me now, Beef?
Yeah.
Okay,
Much better. Good to
Yeah.
see you, Miriam. Good to see you, Sandra.
Yeah.
You guys.
It's been a while. Miriam always says, "Oh yeah, my friend might come. My friend might come." But,
Yeah.
It's very good to see you and meet you, Sandra, and it's great to have you, Miriam.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be there next week.
Wonderful.
Too, yes.
Having you.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Stay safe. Keep some prayers. If you need anything, let us know. If you have more questions, just put them out there, and we'll see everybody next time. Maybe Sunday morning if you close. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. So, good
Right.
night.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you all soon. Good to see you, Z.
Yeah, Z, have a good one. Love you, brother.
Hi, Candace.
Hi.
Hey, Candace.
Hi guys.
All
Hey,
right.
it was nice. It was nice seeing the boys.
Yeah, we're just wrapping up on here, but we're gonna be back next week at 7:15.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Have a nice week.
See you, everyone. Thank you, Miriam. See you, Candace.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
I literally saw your face. What?
Your friend that you were talking
Yeah,
about.
yes. I was. Yeah, I saw your face when I mentioned my friend. You was like, "What?" Yeah. If you decide to call me like more often, I will let you know because Jack's know about everything. You know.